Welcome back. I'm speaking with Jorgo Riss. He's the Greenpeace EU Director, and we're talking about the recently released TTIP documents that Greenpeace had gotten a hold of and publicly released it on Monday. Let's have a look at what the chief negotiator of TTIP, Ignacio Garcia Becerro, had to say.
Is that, quite frankly, some of the points that Greenpeace has been making on the basis of these documents are flatly wrong. For instance, it is being said that the European Union is ignoring in these negotiations the precautionary principle that is nowhere reflected upon in the documents.
So, Jorgo, how do you respond to what Mr. Becerro is saying here?
Well, the European Commission and also the US Trade Representative are trying to play this down. I mean, they would, wouldn't they? They're saying this is really nothing interesting. This is really nothing very relevant. Go on, don't have a look at it. Don't pay attention to what Greenpeace has leaked here. The interesting thing is that the week before we leaked this, the EU made public statements following also the visit of President Obama to the European Union, saying that the negotiations are on good track and that both President Obama as well as the leaders of the EU are confident that they will conclude this treaty by the end of the year. So they can't have it both ways. They cannot say 1 week we're far advanced and we're getting close to finishing this up. After 3 years, we may be ready by the end of this year to conclude. And then the following week, after our leak, they say, oh, well, what this is just, just initial positions on the table, nothing yet on which anything has been decided. I mean, that just doesn't add up. So they're trying to divert people's attentions, but the story is huge. Here in Europe, it's been front page news in France, in Spain, in England, in Germany, and elsewhere, in the Netherlands. In the European Parliament, we have people who initially were proponents of the treaty, who now, when they see the actual text and the direction in which this is going, namely a framework that would allow lowering of consumer health protection standards, labor standards, who are sort of saying, hold on, this is not what we thought this was going to be. President Hollande of France has said, not a treaty like this, he will veto. We've had other leaders in the European Union of parties and governments taking distance from the treaty. So I do think that the evidence is now on the table, and it is much more difficult for people to still pretend that TTIP is just about adjusting, regulations so that certain trade can flow a bit better. We have shown with this leak that there's something much more sinister at play, unfortunately, that the EU and the US are using these secretive talks to agree on types of regulation that the 800 million people on both sides of the North Atlantic would never accept if they were proposed in an open debate.
Jorgo, President Obama, of course, was just in Europe, as you said, and he was really pushing to bring the TTIP to a closure. I think he wants to put a signature on this agreement before he leaves office. But obviously, from your exposure here, we now know this is not in the interest of ordinary people, but in the interest of whom? Who is he trying to please here before he leaves office?
To fight treaties like these, where governments are trying to arrange in secret deals that they would never be able to get through in a public debate, you have to create transparency and you have to create public debate. And I think in Europe, citizens have benefited from the fact that there was a lot of pressure by civil society early on when the negotiations started, demanding transparency. And then we have an institution in the European Union called the European Ombudsman, who is sort of an institution that ensures that the European Union respects some of the fundamental rights. And after a 6 months investigation, while the negotiations were going on, she found that indeed the European Commission has to publish more documents. And so we've had a debate that had some information, that had some facts to go by, whereas in the United States, on one hand, there was more attention on the TPP, and also there was nothing really that was published that one could get one's hands on. So I hope that with the leak now, groups in the United States and interested people in the United States can look for themselves what your government is really putting forward, and to what extent you want that kind of treaty between the two biggest economies in the world, with the implication that has globally. I'm very encouraged. I saw that Public Citizen in the United States has already published a first rough analysis of one of the crucial chapters in the chapter on regulatory cooperation. So I think if they and other groups and in the United States dig into that and analyze it, and then make it public what's going on there. Also, the U.S. negotiators may back down and may be more cautious than now, where they have been purely pursuing an industry agenda.
Jorgo Riss, I thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to have you back very soon on the Real News Network. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shamini. Goodbye.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.